The grand hall was bigger than anything Kyle Martinez had ever seen. It stretched upward for what seemed like miles, with walls made of smooth white stone that glowed with soft light. Creatures from across the galaxy filled the seats, some with fur, some with scales, and some that looked like walking crystals. Kyle stood in the center of it all, wearing a simple black suit that felt very plain compared to the colorful robes and armor around him. Behind Kyle stood 3 other humans. Linda Hayes was writing notes on her tablet, her face calm but her eyes worried. Greg Johnson kept looking at the alien ships visible through the massive windows, counting them silently. Peter Brooks was studying the aliens, probably thinking about their biology like he always did. The humans had been part of this galactic community for 7 months. 7 short months since aliens had found Earth. 7 months since humanity learned they were not alone. 7 months since they got invited to join this council that ruled most of the galaxy. It had seemed like a dream come true. That dream was about to turn into a nightmare. A tall alien stood up from his chair. He had 4 arms, a body covered in dark green shell, and eyes that reminded Kyle of a mantis. His name was Vorn, and he ruled an empire of 43 star systems. The translator device in Kyle's ear turned the clicking sounds into words. "The matter is finished," Vorn said, his voice harsh. "The Sol system is in Sector 447. Our laws say that any planet with valuable minerals can be mined by senior members. These laws are 6,000 years old. Much older than your entire civilization." Kyle felt his jaw tighten. He had spent 3 months reading those laws during the long trip to this meeting. Vorn was technically right. The laws did say that. But the laws were written before humans existed. "With respect," Kyle said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Earth is not empty. We have 9 billion people. We have cities and nations. We have space stations." Another alien laughed. This one looked like a large snake with arms. "You barely reached your own moon. You call that spacefaring? You cannot even travel faster than light on your own. The gift we gave you is the only reason you're here." Kyle knew this would come up. The Council only considered a species truly spacefaring if they could travel faster than light. Humans could not do that yet. The aliens had given them 1 ship with that technology, but humans could not build their own. "Mars is ours," Kyle continued, choosing his words carefully. "We have 3 colonies there with 42,000 people. We have been terraforming it for decades. Taking Mars would destroy our work and displace our citizens." "Your colonies do not matter," Vorn said coldly. "The Council has voted. My people will mine Mars for 20 years. Your colonists have 6 months to leave." The hall filled with sounds of agreement, chirps, hums, and barks from dozens of different species. They all supported Vorn. Kyle looked back at Greg, whose face had turned red with anger. The military commander shook his head slightly, warning Kyle to stay calm. Linda was typing frantically. Peter looked like he wanted to say something but held back. "Earth cannot accept this," Kyle said firmly. "Mars is our territory. We will defend it." The hall went completely silent. Nobody spoke to the Council like this. The Council made the rules. The Council kept peace. For a new member only 7 months old, to threaten a senior member was unthinkable. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was a declaration of war. Vorn's mouth parts clicked together, and what Kyle had learned was laughter. "You will defend it with what? Your chemical rockets? Your simple weapons? Human. Your whole species has less than 200 spacecraft. None of them are real warships. My empire has 4,000 warships. We will defend it," Kyle repeated quietly but firmly. An alien made of crystal stood up. Her name was Drevix, and her people had been the first to contact Earth. "Ambassador Martinez, please think about this. We brought humanity into this council in good faith. Do not throw this away over 1 planet. The galaxy has countless worlds." "With respect, Chancellor," Kyle replied, "there is only 1 Mars, and it belongs to humanity." Vorn spread all 4 of his arms wide. "Then let the record show that humans, after only 7 months, have refused a legal council decision. You have threatened military action against the Kashyyyk Dominion. You have 1 month to remove your people from Mars, or my fleet will do it for you. This meeting is over." As the aliens left the hall, Linda moved close to Kyle. "We just declared war on an empire with 43 star systems," she said quietly. "The president is going to be shocked." "The president told me not to back down on Mars," Kyle replied. Those were his exact words. Humanity does not survive by giving up every time someone bigger makes demands. Greg stepped up beside Kyle. We have 4 weeks to prepare for a war we cannot win. I hope you have a plan. We have one advantage, Peter said thoughtfully. They know nothing about us. 7 months is not enough time to understand what humans are really like. Kyle nodded slowly. Then we need to make sure that when they arrive at Mars, they get a proper introduction to humanity. The trip back to Earth took 3 months because their ship was slower than the alien vessels. By the time they arrived, Earth had already been preparing. The message Kyle sent had reached home weeks before the ship did, traveling through the communication network the aliens had set up. President Harold Chen met them at the landing pad. He was a former general who had fought in 3 wars before becoming president. His face was lined with age and worry, but his eyes were sharp. You did the right thing, Chen said as Kyle stepped off the ship. Mars is not negotiable. If we give it up, they will take more. Then more. We would never be equals. We would always be the weak ones who gave up. They have 4,000 warships, Kyle said. We have 63 ships and most of them are patrol boats. I know, Chen replied. But we have something they do not have. We have 4 billion years of evolution on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We have 5,000 years of human warfare. We have the experience of a species that learned to fight before it learned to fly. They walked toward the presidential transport. Around them, the spaceport was busy with activity. Ships were being loaded with supplies. Soldiers were boarding transports headed for Mars. The whole planet was mobilizing for war. Can we win? Kyle asked. Chen was quiet for a moment. Win? Probably not. Not in the way they think of winning, but we can make them bleed. We can make them regret attacking us. We can show the galaxy that humanity is not prey, and maybe, just maybe, we can make it too expensive for them to continue. How many will die? Kyle asked quietly. Too many, Chen said. But they will die defending humanity's right to exist as equals in this galaxy. That is worth dying for. Kyle thought about the 42,000 colonists on Mars. He thought about the soldiers who would defend them. He thought about the ships that would face impossible odds in space. All of those people would be fighting because he had refused to back down. No regrets, Chen said, reading Kyle's expression. You did what needed to be done. Now we all do what needs to be done. We show these aliens what happens when you threaten humanity. The transport lifted off, carrying them toward the emergency session of the United Earth government. Below them, the planet buzzed with preparation. Factories were running day and night making weapons and ammunition. Shipyards were working to arm every vessel they had. Training camps were full of volunteers ready to fight. Humanity had 1 month to prepare for war against an enemy with overwhelming superiority. 1 month to turn themselves from a species that had just joined the galaxy into a species that could defend itself. 1 month to teach the aliens a lesson they would never forget. The lesson was simple. Humanity does not surrender. The emergency meeting room was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth. President Harold Chen stood at the front, his face serious as he addressed the crowd. On the screen behind him was an image of Mars, the red planet that had become the center of a crisis. They are giving us 1 month, Chen said loudly and clearly. 1 month before 4,000 alien warships arrive to remove our people from Mars by force. They want to tear apart the planet for minerals. Our ambassador did exactly what we told him to do. He stood firm. Now we have to support that decision with action. A woman from Europe stood up quickly. Her name was Claudia Vance, and she looked frightened. This is madness. 4,000 warships against our 63 ships. Most of ours are just patrol boats. We need to negotiate. We need to apologize and find a middle ground. The middle ground is giving up Mars, replied General Eric Stone. He was the head of Earth's military. That is not a compromise. That is surrender before we even try to fight. A man from Asia stood next. Minister Liu Wei spoke calmly but firmly. General, I agree we cannot abandon Mars, but she has a point. How do we fight this? What are our chances? Stone brought up a hologram showing the solar system. In a normal battle, we lose badly. They have better ships, better weapons, better shields, and thousands of years of experience. If we fight them directly in space, we lose, and they might threaten Earth itself. So we must surrender, Claudia said. I did not say that, Stone replied. He zoomed the display to show Mars more closely. They are expecting this to be easy. They think we will back down when we see their fleet. According to our intelligence, they have not fought a real war in 600 years. They just show up with big fleets and everyone surrenders. We are not surrendering, Chen stated clearly. Continue, General, Stone nodded. The aliens do not know how humans fight. They do not know our history. They do not know that we spent 5,000 years perfecting warfare. They see us as primitives with simple weapons. That is their mistake. He showed images of the 3 Mars colonies. We have 42,000 people on Mars right now. We are evacuating all civilians who cannot fight. That leaves about 8,000 volunteers who will stay and defend the planet. 8,000 people against 4,000 ships, Claudia said quietly, shaking her head. Not against the ships, Stone said with a thin smile. We cannot beat them in space. But when they land to start mining, we have options. A hologram appeared showing a woman in military uniform. Commander Helen Price was broadcasting from Mars. General Stone and I have been planning since we got the warning. Mars is a big planet. They will need ground bases, landing zones, and workers. We have been studying everything we learned about their biology and technology. What did you find? Chen asked. Helen explained carefully. They breathe oxygen like us, but they evolved on planets with stronger gravity and thicker air. Mars is going to be uncomfortable for them. They will need special suits or buildings. Their armor is good, but it is designed to stop energy weapons. Those are common in the galaxy. We do not have energy weapons, someone pointed out. Exactly, Helen said with a grim smile. We have bullets. Lots and lots of bullets. We have been stockpiling weapons and ammunition on Mars for months. Every colonist who stays knows how to fight or is learning now. Stone continued the explanation.
We are also sending everything that might help.
Mines that we can bury in the ground, drones that can attack from the air, traps and ambush positions. Classic guerrilla warfare tactics. This still just delays them, Claudia protested. Even if we make Mars difficult, they can just bomb it from space. Not if they want the minerals, Helen countered. Bombing from orbit destroys what they came to get. They need careful operations, which means ground troops, and every day we hold them. Every soldier we kill, every machine we destroy, it costs them money, time, and reputation. Chen nodded. We make it too expensive to continue. We show the galaxy that attacking humans is not worth the cost. The Council will pressure them to negotiate instead of fighting a long, costly war. That is the plan, Stone admitted. But it requires our 8,000 defenders on Mars to hold out against whatever troops they send. It requires our space defenses to make their fleet pay for every attack. And it requires everyone on Earth to be ready if the war comes here. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If the aliens decided to attack Earth directly, millions could die. Finally, Chen spoke. When the aliens first contacted us, we took a vote. Every nation agreed that we would enter the galaxy as a united species. We would not be victims. We would not be weak. We would earn respect, not beg for it. That decision means something. Vote now. Do we fight or do we abandon Mars? The vote was not close. 307 nations voted to fight. Only 43 voted to surrender. Humanity would go to war. On Mars, Helen Price stood outside New Houston Colony, watching the last civilian transport take off. 800 people, mostly children and elderly, were heading back to Earth. It would take them 3 months to get there, but they would be safe. Next to her, Captain Roy Fisher checked his rifle. It was a modern electromagnetic weapon that could punch through most armor at 500 meters. We are really doing this, he said. Fighting aliens with guns. Sometimes old methods work best, Helen replied. She looked up at the thin Martian sky. They are going to arrive thinking we are primitives. Savages with crude weapons. We are primitives with crude weapons, Roy pointed out. Compared to them, true, Helen agreed. But we are primitives who spent our entire history fighting each other with these crude weapons. We got very, very good at it. She turned to look at the defensive positions around New Houston. Trenches, bunkers, hidden gun positions, and minefields stretched for kilometers. There is an old saying from Earth military history, she added with a cold smile. God made all men, but Samuel Colt made them equal. Let us see if that works for aliens, too. Across the solar system, preparations continued. Every spaceship was being armed with whatever weapons could be mounted. Railguns, missile launchers, even old chemical rockets. If it could damage an alien ship, it was being installed. The orbital defense platforms around Earth were being reinforced. More satellites with weapons were launched. More sensor nets were deployed. Earth was turning itself into a fortress. On Mars, the 8,000 defenders worked day and night. They dug trenches and built bunkers. They planted mines in careful patterns. They set up automated gun positions that could fire without anyone controlling them. They created choke points where alien troops would be forced to advance through narrow areas. Every building in the 3 colonies was turned into a potential fighting position. Windows were reinforced. Walls were strengthened. Roofs were given firing positions. The cities became fortresses. Underground, the colonists built supply depots and medical stations. They created communication networks that could survive bombardment. They established fallback positions where they could retreat if the surface became too dangerous. Helen walked through these preparations, checking everything personally. She stopped to talk to groups of defenders, making sure they understood the plan. Making sure they were ready for what was coming. "How long can we hold?" one young defender asked. His name was Danny Wright, and he had been a mining engineer before volunteering to fight. Helen considered the question honestly. If they send everything at once, maybe a week. If they are cautious and careful, maybe a month, maybe longer if we are lucky. And then, Danny asked. And then we have shown the galaxy that humans do not quit. We have made them pay such a high price that other species will think twice before threatening us. We have bought Earth time to build more ships, make more weapons, and prepare better defenses. We are buying time with our lives, Danny said quietly. Yes, Helen agreed, but that is what soldiers do. We sacrifice so others can live, so humanity can survive, so our species can have a future among the stars. Danny nodded slowly. Then let us make it count, Helen smiled. That is exactly the plan. As the month passed, the preparations became more intense. Every person on Mars knew their role. Every gun was tested and ready. Every mine was armed. Every trap was set. On Earth, families said goodbye to loved ones heading to Mars, knowing many would not return, knowing that this war would cost thousands of lives, but also knowing that it was necessary, that some things were worth fighting for. That surrender would only lead to more demands, more losses, more humiliation. President Chen gave a speech that was broadcast across Earth and to Mars. We did not want this war, he said, but we will fight it. We will show the galaxy what humanity is made of. We will prove that we deserve our place among the stars, not because someone gave it to us, but because we earned it, with courage, with sacrifice, with the refusal to bow down to threats. The speech was cheered on Earth and Mars. It was translated and sent to the aliens. It was humanity's final message before the war began. We are ready. Come and try to take what is ours. The countdown began. 28 days until the alien fleet arrived. 28 days until humanity fought its first interstellar war. 28 days until the galaxy learned what humans were truly capable of when pushed to fight. 3 weeks into the war, the aliens had managed to secure 47 square kilometers of Martian surface around their main landing zone. It had cost them 2,000 soldiers, 80 armored vehicles, and 16 aircraft. In return, they had killed approximately 1,500 human defenders, but the humans kept fighting. High Commander Vrath walked through the field hospital in the secured zone, watching the wounded being treated. Soldiers with shattered armor and missing limbs lay on medical beds. Some stared at nothing, their minds broken by the constant attacks. These were professional warriors from an empire thousands of years old, and they looked defeated. Commander, Medical Officer Thex approached. She was a senior doctor who had seen many conflicts in her career. We are seeing injuries unlike anything in our medical databases. The humans use projectile weapons that fragment inside the body, creating massive internal damage. Their explosives are crude but extremely effective, and they use chemical agents. Chemical warfare is banned by council law, Vrath stated firmly. Tell the humans that, Thex replied bitterly. They use riot control agents, tear gas, even industrial chemicals as weapons. Nothing that causes permanent death, so technically not illegal, but very effective at disrupting our operations and causing our soldiers to panic. Vrath moved to a window overlooking the Martian landscape. In the distance, he could see New Houston, still firmly in human control despite 3 major assaults. The city looked like a fortress with every building turned into a defensive position. How are they still fighting? He asked quietly. We have killed more than a third of their defenders. They have no support from orbit, limited supplies, and no hope of victory. Why do they not surrender? A voice spoke behind him. I think you are asking the wrong question, Commander. Vrath turned to see Senior Analyst Krev, a crystalline alien who had been sent as a cultural advisor. The Varathi were the species that had first contacted humans, and they understood them better than most. The question is not why they are still fighting, Krev continued. The question is, have you ever faced a species that evolved on a death world? Mars is barely habitable, Vrath objected. Not Mars, Krev said. Earth. I have been studying their homeworld while you conduct this operation. Commander, Earth is a nightmare planet. Temperature extremes that would kill most species. Weather patterns that include storms with winds strong enough to destroy cities. Earthquakes and volcanoes that devastate entire regions. And that does not count the predators. What predators? Vrath asked, genuinely curious despite his frustration. Themselves, Krev replied. Humans are apex predators. For 4 million years, they competed against creatures larger and stronger than they were. They won through intelligence, cooperation, and pure stubborn persistence. And then, for the last 10,000 years, they turned those skills on each other. Krev brought up holographic images showing Earth's history. Thousands of wars, Commander, thousands. Some lasted days, some lasted decades. They developed warfare into an art form. They studied it like we study science. While your people were maintaining peace through strength, humans were learning hundreds of ways to kill each other efficiently. That makes them barbarians, Vrath said dismissively. No, Krev corrected. It makes them survivors. And it makes them dangerous warriors because they never forgot how to fight. Every human child learns military history. Every human adult understands that sometimes violence is necessary. They are not fighting you because they think they can win, Commander. They are fighting because surrender is not in their nature. Vrath turned back to the window, watching his troops prepare for another assault on New Houston. Then we will teach them to surrender. I do not think you can, Krev said quietly. I do not think anyone can. At New Houston, Helen Price was exhausted. 3 weeks of constant combat with barely any sleep. 3 weeks of managing casualties, supplies, and morale. They had lost 3,200 defenders, nearly 40% of their original fighting force. But they still held the city. Incoming transmission from Earth, Frank Morris reported. Priority channel. Helen accepted the call. President Chen's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. Commander Price, I wanted to update you. The aliens have requested another council meeting to discuss the Mars situation. Let me guess, Helen said. They are complaining that we are fighting back too hard. Chen smiled grimly. Essentially, yes. They claim we are using illegal tactics and refusing to honor their extraction rights. The council is divided. Half think we are in the wrong. Half are questioning why it takes the mighty Kashik Dominion 3 weeks to secure 3 small settlements against 8,000 defenders. We have been killing them at a 3-to-1 ratio. Mr. President, Helen reported, but we cannot sustain this much longer. Another week, maybe 2 at most. After that, we run out of ammunition, medical supplies, and people. Can you hold for 1 more week? Chen asked. We are pushing hard for a negotiated settlement. The Varathi support us, and surprisingly, several other species do too. Apparently, the galaxy is watching this war, and many are impressed by our determination. Impressed enough to help us? Helen asked hopefully. Not yet, Chen admitted, but impressed enough to question whether the council should allow resource extraction on inhabited worlds. You are changing policy through sacrifice, Commander. Every day you hold out gives us more negotiating strength. We will hold for 1 week, Helen promised. After that, I cannot guarantee anything. The transmission ended. Helen turned to Frank. 1 more week. Let us make it count. The next 7 days were brutal. The aliens, embarrassed by council questions and frustrated by their slow progress, launched massive attacks on all 3 colonies at once. They committed more troops, more vehicles, more aircraft. They accepted casualties they had previously avoided. New Houston burned under sustained assault. Buildings collapsed. Streets became war zones. The hospital overflowed with wounded, but the defenders held, retreating from position to position, making the aliens pay for every meter. Unity Station fell on the 4th day after a brutal siege. The survivors retreated into underground tunnels where the aliens could not easily follow. They continued fighting from below, using the tunnel networks to launch ambushes and sabotage operations. Hope Settlement lasted 5 days before the defenders executed a planned retreat into the canyon systems nearby. The aliens occupied the empty settlement only to find it booby-trapped. The explosions when they entered buildings cost them another 200 soldiers, but every day cost the humans too. Defenders died holding positions, medical supplies ran low, ammunition stockpiles dwindled, food and water became scarce as supply depots were destroyed. On the sixth day, with only 1,900 defenders left alive across all three colonies, Helen prepared for the final stand. They would make their last defense in the deepest bunkers of New Houston. They would fight until ammunition ran out. Then they would fight with whatever they could find. She was writing farewell messages to families when Frank burst into her command room. "Commander, transmission from Earth. The Council has issued a ruling." Helen looked up, barely daring to hope. "What ruling?" Frank was grinning, tears running down his dusty face. "The extraction license is suspended pending review. The aliens are ordered to withdraw to orbital positions and cease all offensive operations. Negotiations for a permanent settlement begin immediately." Helen sat back in her chair, suddenly feeling every hour of exhaustion. "We won?" "We won," Frank confirmed. The Council could not ignore what was happening here. Too many member species were asking uncomfortable questions. Why did the Kashyyyk need 4,000 ships to handle 8,000 primitives? Why were casualty ratios favoring the humans? Why was a probationary member fighting harder than most Council militaries could manage? Helen stood slowly, her body aching. Around her, the command center erupted in cheers as the news spread. Defenders who had been preparing to die were suddenly celebrating survival. On the Dominance, Vrath received the order with numb disbelief. 28 days of combat, 4,200 soldiers dead or wounded, 17 ships destroyed by makeshift orbital defenses and suicide attacks, countless equipment destroyed or damaged, and they were being ordered to stop. The humans, with their primitive weapons and crude tactics, had won. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, they had won through sheer bloody-minded refusal to surrender and the ability to make every battle cost more than it was worth. As the alien fleet withdrew to high orbit, Vrath watched Mars recede on his screens. Somewhere down there, 1,900 humans were celebrating a victory that should have been impossible. "They are animals," he said to no one in particular. "Savage creatures." "No, Commander," Krev replied from his station. "They are humans, and the galaxy just learned what that means. It means you do not threaten them unless you are prepared to pay a terrible price. It means that technology alone does not win wars. And it means that sometimes the newest members of the galactic community have the oldest and most effective lessons to teach." Vrath said nothing. He simply watched Mars disappear from view, knowing that this defeat would change the Kashyyyk Dominion forever, and knowing that humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way. The alien fleet arrived exactly on time. 4,000 ships appeared at the edge of the solar system in a display of technology that made human achievements look like toys. They materialized from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, a wall of metal and power stretching across space. High Commander Vrath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominance. He had 4 arms crossed behind his back as he watched the primitive solar system appear on his screens. One yellow star, some rocky planets close in, gas giants farther out. Nothing special except for the infestation of humans. "Report," Vrath commanded. "The human homeworld has about 130 small stations and satellites in orbit," his sensor officer said. "Mars shows 3 settlements and some smaller outposts. What about their fleet?" 61 vessels detected, small patrol craft up to medium frigates, all positioned around Mars. No serious weapons detected. Vrath's mouth parts clicked in satisfaction. The humans were going to make a show of resistance, then surrender. They always did. In his 400 years of service, he had overseen 23 resource extraction operations. Sometimes the primitive species postured and threatened, but they always backed down when they saw the Dominion's power. "Send the first wave," Vrath ordered. "Battle Group 7 will secure orbit around Mars. Battle Groups 3 and 5 will cover the approaches. Do not fire on human ships unless they attack first. We are here for minerals, not killing." The fleet moved forward slowly and confidently. It would take 2 days to reach Mars. 2 days for the humans to see the fleet coming and understand they had no chance. 2 days to reconsider their foolish declaration of war. On Mars, Helen Price watched the sensor readings in the command center buried beneath New Houston. The alien fleet was moving slowly, not even in combat formation. They were treating this like a police action, not a war. They are not taking us seriously, said Lieutenant Frank Morris, her tactical officer. Good, Helen replied. Let them be confident. Let them think we will give up. She opened a channel to all 3 colonies. All units, prepare for Phase 1, wait for my signal. In orbit around Mars, 61 human ships waited. Most were civilian vessels converted for war. Mining ships with railguns welded to their hulls. Cargo haulers with missile racks bolted to their sides. Only 12 were actual military ships, and even those were designed for patrol duty, not fleet battles. Captain Jake Hernandez commanded the Defiant, one of the 12 real warships. It was small, barely 200 meters long with a crew of 60. The alien flagship was 10 times larger. Contact in 6 hours, his sensor officer reported. They are not even raising shields yet. Jake felt his hands tighten on his chair. This was insane. They were insects attacking eagles. But those were human colonies below. Human people who deserved protection. And orders were orders. All ships, this is Defiant, he broadcast to the fleet. You know the plan. We are not here to win. We are here to make them bleed, to make them pay, to show them that humans do not surrender. When this starts, give them everything we have. Make our ancestors proud. The responses came back one by one, 60 voices acknowledging, some scared, some determined, all committed. 6 hours later, as the alien battle group entered Mars orbit, Jake gave the order. All ships, weapons free. Fire! 61 ships opened fire at once. Railgun slugs moving at incredible speeds. Missiles with chemical warheads. Kinetic impactors designed to punch through armor. Everything humanity could throw at an alien fleet launched in one massive barrage. The alien shields absorbed most of it. Energy barriers flickered and glowed as projectiles hit them. But the sheer volume was unexpected. 2 smaller alien ships took damage, their shields overloading under the sustained fire. They are actually fighting back, Vrath's sensor officer said, surprised. Return fire. Disable their ships, Vrath ordered, annoyed. This was supposed to be simple. A show of force followed by surrender. The alien fleet responded with devastating accuracy. Energy beams lanced across space, hitting human ships with surgical precision. The freighter Liberty's torch exploded instantly, its converted hull unable to handle military-grade weapons. The patrol boat Relentless took a direct hit and went dark, tumbling through space with no power. But the humans did not retreat. They kept firing, kept moving forward in groups, concentrating their attacks on individual alien ships to overwhelm their shields. Jake watched as the Defiant's railgun scored a direct hit on an alien cruiser's engine section. The shield held, but the impact knocked the ship off course. Target their antennas, their sensors, anything that sticks out. Make them work for every meter. The battle lasted 40 minutes. It felt like hours. When it ended, 37 human ships were destroyed or crippled. The remaining 24 retreated to defensive positions among Mars's orbital stations, but the aliens had lost 6 ships completely destroyed and 18 more damaged. Against an enemy they expected to fold immediately. Against primitives with simple kinetic weapons they had taken real casualties. On the Dominance, Vrath stared at the damage reports in disbelief. How? He demanded. They have no shields, no energy weapons, no advanced systems. How did they destroy 6 of our ships? They used solid projectiles accelerated to extreme velocities, his tactical officer explained. Our shields are calibrated for energy weapons. The solid projectiles partially penetrated before exploding, and they fought with reckless aggression, sacrificing themselves for small tactical advantages. Vrath's mouth parts ground together in anger. Then we will show them what real warfare looks like. Deploy ground forces to all 3 colonies. I want those settlements cleared and mining operations beginning within 2 days. Fire on any human ship that approaches orbit. As the aliens began landing operations, Helen received the report of the space battle. 37 ships lost. Nearly 1,000 spacers dead. The price of buying time. Here they come, Frank Morris reported. First landing craft touching down 20 kilometers north of New Houston. We count approximately 3,000 troops, armored vehicles, and air support. Let them land, Helen ordered. Let them commit to the ground. Then we show them what humans do best. The alien ground forces established a perimeter with professional efficiency. Their powered armor gleamed in the thin Martian sunlight. They began marching toward New Houston in organized formations, expecting minimal resistance. They made it 3 kilometers before the ground beneath them exploded. Human ingenuity had spent a month turning the approaches to New Houston into a death trap. Mines buried in patterns, improvised explosives hidden under rocks, automated gun positions concealed in the landscape. Classic booby traps that had worked on Earth for centuries. The lead elements of the alien advance walked into a storm of fire and destruction. Explosions threw bodies through the thin Martian air. Bullets punched through armor that was designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles. Hidden machine guns opened fire from concealed bunkers. The aliens had shields and advanced armor. But they had never faced an enemy that turned every rock into a potential ambush. That buried explosives in artistic patterns designed to cause maximum casualties. That used dirt and deception as weapons. The first day of ground combat cost the aliens 400 soldiers and 24 armored vehicles. They advanced exactly 1 kilometer toward New Houston. On the Dominance, Vrath read the casualty reports with growing fury and disbelief. "They fight like vermin," he snarled. "Like insects defending a nest with stings and bites." Requesting permission to use orbital bombardment to clear the defensive positions, his ground commander asked. Vrath almost agreed. Orbital strikes would eliminate the human defenses easily. But then he stopped. Orbital bombardment would destroy the mineral deposits they came to extract. The Council would question the Dominion's competence if they damaged the resources they were sent to harvest. "Negative," Vrath replied. "Continue ground operations. Use whatever force necessary but minimize damage to the mineral deposits." As he gave the order, Vrath felt something he had not experienced in 600 years of peacekeeping operations, something he had not felt since his training days. Doubt the humans were not supposed to be a threat. They were supposed to be a minor obstacle easily removed. But they were fighting with a ferocity and cunning that the Dominion had not faced in centuries. Down on Mars, Helen stood in the command bunker, watching reports come in from all 3 colonies. Unity Station reported similar success against alien landing forces. Hope Settlement had destroyed an entire alien company in a canyon ambush. "How long can we keep this up?" Frank asked. Helen considered the question honestly. "Ammunition is the main concern. We have enough for maybe 3 weeks of sustained combat. Food and water are good for months. Medical supplies will last as long as the fighting is not too intense." 3 weeks, Frank repeated. "Against 4,000 ships." "Against 3,000 ground troops per colony," Helen corrected. "They cannot use all 4,000 ships. They need most of them for orbital control and logistics. They can probably rotate about 10,000 troops through Mars at a time. That is still better than our numbers." "True," Helen agreed. "But we have the home advantage. We know this terrain. We prepared it, and we have something they do not have." "What is that?" Helen smiled coldly. 3 months after the Battle of Mars, Ambassador Kyle Martinez stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time the chamber was far more crowded. Species that had barely noticed humanity before now watched with intense interest. The gallery was full of observers from dozens of worlds. The negotiations had been long and complex. Lawyers and diplomats had argued over every detail. But finally, the moment had come for the Council to announce its decision. Chancellor Drevix of the Varathi stood to address the assembly. Her crystalline body reflected the chamber's light in shifting patterns. After careful review of the conflict on Mars, the Council has reached several important conclusions. First, the extraction license granted to the Kashyyyk Dominion is permanently revoked. Mars will remain under human control. A murmur ran through the chamber. Beside Kyle, Linda Hayes allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. They had won on the primary objective. Mars was theirs. Second, Drevix continued, the Council acknowledges that our regulations regarding resource extraction and territorial sovereignty are outdated. A commission will be formed to review and modernize these laws. Special attention will be paid to the rights of inhabited worlds, regardless of the technological level of their inhabitants. This caused more discussion. Several older species looked uncomfortable. They had benefited from the old system where advanced civilizations could exploit primitive worlds. Those days were ending. Third, and most significantly, Drevix said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, humanity's probationary period is concluded. The human species is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities. The chamber erupted in various sounds, chirps of approval, hums of agreement, but also clicks of disapproval and hisses of anger. Kyle felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had fought its way to a permanent seat at the table of galactic civilization. High Prelate Vorn of the Kashyyyk sat rigid in his seat, mouth parts clenched in barely contained fury. His empire had been humiliated. His military had been shown to be ineffective against a species that had joined the galaxy only 7 months ago. The political consequences at home were severe, with several Dominion worlds questioning their leadership. After the session ended, Kyle was approached by an unexpected visitor. High Commander Vrath, no longer wearing military armor but dressed in simple civilian robes, requested a private meeting. They met in a neutral room with just the two of them. "I wanted to speak with you personally," Vrath began, his translator making his clicks into hesitant words, "to understand what I faced on Mars." "You faced humans defending their home," Kyle replied simply. "It was more than that," Vrath insisted. "I have studied your history since the battle. Your species has fought thousands of wars against itself. You have weapons designed specifically to cause maximum damage. You have tactics that focus on winning rather than honor. Why?" Kyle thought carefully before answering. "Because we had to. Earth is not a gentle world, Commander. It is a planet of extremes, disasters, and dangers. We evolved fighting for survival every single day, and when we became the dominant species on our world, we turned those survival skills on each other. We are not proud of all our history, but it made us who we are." "You are warriors," Vrath said. "We are survivors," Kyle corrected. "There is a difference. Warriors seek battle for glory. We fight to endure, to protect what is ours, to ensure our continued existence. But when threatened, when pushed, we remember 4 million years of struggling to survive, and we do whatever is necessary." Vrath was quiet for a long moment. "The galaxy has been at peace for 600 years, he finally said. "Perhaps too long. We forgot that diplomacy requires the possibility of force behind it. We forgot what real warfare looks like. You reminded us. We did not want this war," Kyle said honestly. "We wanted to join the galactic community peacefully, to learn and grow and contribute. But we will not be bullied. We will not abandon our people. If that makes us dangerous, we accept that label." "It does make you dangerous," Vrath acknowledged. "But perhaps the galaxy needs that. A reminder that peace is not guaranteed. It must be maintained, defended, and sometimes fought for." The alien extended one of his forearms in a gesture Kyle had learned meant respect. Kyle shook the offered hand. "Welcome to the galaxy, Ambassador Martinez," Vrath said. "I suspect your species will change it in ways none of us can predict." "We will do our best to make them positive changes," Kyle replied. On Mars, the rebuilding had begun. Helen Price stood in the ruins of New Houston, supervising reconstruction efforts. The city was scarred and broken, but it was still standing, like humanity itself. Captain Roy Fisher approached, his arm in a medical brace from a wound taken in the final days of fighting. "We are building a memorial," he reported, "for the 5,473 who died defending Mars. They earned it," Helen said. "They earned all of this." She gestured at the construction around them. New buildings were rising from the ashes. Supply ships from Earth were arriving regularly. "The planet was healing. Was it worth it?" Roy asked quietly. "All those deaths, all that destruction just to keep one planet?" Helen turned to face him directly. "We did not fight for one planet, Captain. We fought to establish a principle, that humanity has a right to exist as equals, that we have a right to defend our territory. If we had given up Mars, we would have given up forever. We would have been victims in a galaxy that saw us as weak. And now? Now they see us as equals," Helen replied. "Dangerous equals perhaps, but equals nonetheless. The next time a species considers pushing humanity around, they will remember Mars. They will count the cost, and most will decide it is not worth it." Roy nodded slowly. "I heard a rumor. Is it true that other species are asking us for military training?" Helen smiled. 7 species so far. It turns out that 600 years of peace makes your military soft. Now that everyone has seen what humans can do in combat, they want to learn our tactics and methods. We are becoming the galaxy's military instructors. "How very human," Roy laughed. "We go from being threatened to being the teachers." "Not teachers of conquest," Helen corrected. "Teachers of defense. We do not want to conquer anyone. We just want to make sure no one can conquer us. And apparently, we are very good at that." Back on Earth, President Chen addressed the United Nations Assembly one final time regarding the Mars conflict. He stood before representatives from every nation, his weathered face showing both pride and sorrow. "We paid a terrible price to earn our place among the stars," Chen said solemnly. 5,473 people died defending Mars. Thousands more were wounded. 37 ships were lost in the initial space battle. This is a cost we never wanted to pay. But we paid it willingly because the alternative was surrender. And humanity does not surrender when we are defending our homes and our people. Not when our very existence as free beings is at stake. The galaxy has learned something important about us. They learned that we are not the newest, weakest member of their council. They learned that we are survivors, fighters, and when absolutely necessary, warriors who will pay any price to defend what is ours. But I want them to learn something else equally important. I want them to learn that we are also explorers, scientists, artists, and dreamers. We are a species that can fight when we must, but would much rather build, create, discover, and cooperate. We are ready to be true partners in the galaxy's future. Today we honor those who fell. Tomorrow, we build a future worthy of their sacrifice. And we do it as full members of the galactic community, standing proud among the stars. The speech was broadcast across the solar system and transmitted to every member of the Galactic Council. Within days, it had been translated into hundreds of languages and shared across thousands of worlds. Humanity had declared war on what they thought was the deadliest species in the galaxy. They had discovered that the deadliest species was themselves, but in doing so they had proven something far more valuable. They had proven they deserved their place among the stars, not through permission or charity, but through courage, sacrifice, and the absolute refusal to back down when defending their homes and their people. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The small species from the yellow star system, the primitives with simple kinetic weapons, had taught the entire galactic community a lesson it would not forget. Some fights are worth fighting. Some causes are worth dying for, and some species, no matter how small or new, will never surrender when their survival is at stake. The humans had arrived among the stars, and the galaxy had learned to respect them. 6 months after the war ended, the changes were visible across the galaxy. The Battle of Mars had become the most discussed military engagement in 600 years. Universities studied it. Military academies analyzed it. Politicians debated it. And everywhere, species were reassessing their understanding of warfare and diplomacy. Ambassador Kyle Martinez sat in his new permanent office on Presbyt, the Council's home world. His temporary quarters had been replaced with a proper embassy building, a sign of humanity's new status. He was reviewing reports from Earth when his assistant, Linda Hayes, entered with news. "You have visitors," she said. 3 of them, all from different species, all requesting military consultation agreements. Kyle sighed. This had become routine. Since the war, dozens of species had approached humanity asking for everything from tactical training to weapons purchases. "Who are they this time?" "The Melodians, the Kragoth, and surprisingly, the Velian," Linda replied. "The Velian are particularly interesting. They control major trade routes. An alliance with them would be valuable." Kyle nodded. "Send them in one at a time. Let us see what they want." The meetings followed a predictable pattern. Each species representative explained that they had been impressed by humanity's performance against the Kashyyyk. Each admitted their own military had become ceremonial during the long peace. Each wanted to hire human military advisors or purchase human weapons technology. The Melodian representative was particularly direct. "We have maintained peace through economic power and diplomacy," she hummed through her translator. "But watching your war made us realize that power without the ability to defend it is fragile. We want to learn how you fight so effectively with limited resources." Kyle gave the same answer he had given to previous requests. "Earth is willing to share knowledge and provide training. But we will not arm aggressive species or teach tactics that could be used for conquest. Our methods are defensive. They work best when protecting something, not attacking it." After the meetings ended, Kyle stood at his window overlooking the council plaza. He could see representatives from hundreds of species moving about their business. 6 months ago, most had barely acknowledged humanity's existence. Now they watched humans with respect mixed with caution. His communication device beeped. A message from General Eric Stone on Earth. Kyle opened it and smiled at the content. The message reported that Earth shipyards were operating at full capacity. 20 new warships were under construction, using a combination of human engineering and alien technology, gifted by allied species. The Varathi had shared their shield technology. The Melodians had provided better sensor systems. Other species contributed various innovations. Humanity was building a real fleet, not the converted civilian ships that had fought at Mars, but purpose-built warships designed from the start for combat. The galaxy's newest member was becoming its newest military power, but the message also included concerning news. The Kashyyyk Dominion was quietly building up its forces. High Prelate Vorn had been removed from power, replaced by younger leadership that was less arrogant but potentially more dangerous. They were studying human tactics and developing countermeasures. They will come back eventually, Linda said, reading over Kyle's shoulder. Species with that much pride do not forget humiliation. Let them come, Kyle replied. Next time we will be ready, and next time we will have allies. That was perhaps the most important change. Humanity was no longer alone. The Varathi had formally aligned themselves with Earth, creating the galaxy's first mutual defense pact in 600 years. 3 other species had joined, forming what was being called the Defensive Coalition. The idea was simple. Member species would help defend each other against aggression. It was a radical concept in a galaxy that had relied on council arbitration for centuries. But the Battle of Mars had proven that council decisions could be unjust, and that sometimes species needed to defend themselves. On Mars, the planet had been transformed. New Houston was rebuilt and larger than before. Unity Station and Hope Settlement were being reconstructed with both human and alien technology. But more importantly, Mars had become a symbol. Helen Price, now promoted to General and Commander of all Mars Defense Forces, walked through the memorial park that had been built in the center of New Houston. 5,473 names were carved into black stone walls. Each name represented a person who had died defending humanity's right to exist as equals in the galaxy. Visitors came from across Earth and even from alien worlds to see the memorial. Some came to honor the fallen, others came to understand what had happened here. All left with a deeper appreciation for the cost of freedom. Roy Fisher, now Major Fisher and Helen's second-in-command, joined her at the memorial. "We have another request from the Galactic Military History Institute," he reported. "They want to interview survivors for their records." "How many does that make?" Helen asked. 43 interviews so far," Roy replied. "They are creating the most detailed military analysis in galactic history. Every battle, every tactic, every decision is being studied." Helen touched one of the names on the wall. Danny Wright, the young mining engineer who had volunteered to fight. He had died in the final week, holding a choke point that allowed 30 other defenders to retreat safely. "Make sure they get the stories right," she said. "These people deserve accurate history, not propaganda." "Understood, General." Helen walked through the park, noting the mix of humans and aliens visiting. A group of Varathi students were taking notes. A Melodian family stood silently before the wall. Even a few Kashyyyk wearing civilian clothes observed from a distance. "It is strange," Roy commented. 6 months ago they were trying to kill us. Now they come to study us." "That is how it works," Helen replied. "Yesterday's enemy becomes tomorrow's teacher." The galaxy had forgotten how to fight. We reminded them. Now they need to learn, and we are the only ones who remember these lessons. On Earth, President Chen was meeting with his cabinet to discuss humanity's future in the galaxy. The conversation was focused on expansion and development. "We have requests from 17 species to establish trade agreements," reported Commerce Secretary Lisa Wu. "They want everything from human manufactured goods to cultural exchanges. The Battle of Mars made humanity famous. Now everyone wants to do business with us." "What about colonization?" Chen asked. "Are we cleared to expand beyond Mars?" "The Council has designated 12 systems as available for human colonization," replied Secretary of Space Development Paul Grant. "All are within 50 light-years of Earth. None are currently inhabited. We can begin survey missions immediately." Chen nodded slowly. "Proceed with surveys, but carefully. I do not want us to trigger another conflict by accidentally claiming something another species considers theirs." "Speaking of conflicts," interjected Defense Secretary Maria Santos, "we need to discuss the Kashyyyk situation. Intelligence suggests they are rebuilding specifically to counter human tactics. They are developing new weapons and armor designed to resist kinetic projectiles." "Let them," Chen replied. "We are not standing still either." By the time they are ready to try again, if they ever do, we will have a proper fleet and better defenses. And more importantly, we will have allies. They will have to think very carefully about whether revenge is worth starting a war that could pull in half the galaxy. The meeting continued for hours, planning humanity's expansion into the stars. New colonies, new trade routes, new alliances. The species that had almost been forced off Mars was now preparing to claim its place as a major galactic power. Back on Presbyt, Kyle attended his first full council session as a permanent member. He now had a proper seat in the chamber, not the temporary position he had occupied before. Next to him sat representatives from the Varathi and other allied species. The session was routine, mostly discussions of trade regulations and minor disputes. But Kyle noticed the difference in how other species treated him. Before the war, they had dismissed human concerns. Now they listened carefully when he spoke. They considered human opinions. They sought human support for their proposals. Fear and respect, Kyle thought. That is what we earned. Not love, but something more useful in politics. During a break, Chancellor Drevix approached him. Ambassador Martinez, I wanted to speak with you privately about the changes happening in the council. They moved to a quiet corner. Drevix's crystalline features reflected concern. The defensive coalition you have formed is causing debate among the older species. Some see it as a challenge to council authority. It is not meant as a challenge, Kyle replied carefully. It is meant as insurance. The council failed to protect humanity from unjust resource extraction. We needed to ensure we could defend ourselves. Other species felt the same vulnerability. I understand, Drevix said, and personally I support it. The council has become too comfortable, too certain that its decisions are always correct. Your war proved that sometimes the council can be wrong, but you should know that some species are concerned. They worry that humanity is becoming too powerful too quickly. We are not seeking power for its own sake, Kyle assured her. We just want security and fair treatment. I believe you, Drevix replied. But be cautious. Rapid rise creates resentment.